Please feel free to share and republish this transcript, which I'll try to include at the end on Facebook and other media, as I have been banned for 30 days, and coincidentally, that ban does not lift until about 2 days after the election. I am certain that this same fate has happened to thousands of other activists on Facebook and other big tech platforms, and what they are censoring are not Republicans or conservatives, but those of us that stand against the globalist agenda. President Trump, the caravan is an act of war and every one of them must be sent back. That is why we put you in office. The reason that Brexit won, the reason that Trump won, the reason that Orban instituted Stop Soros legislation in Hungary, they are all the same reason. We are tired of our leaders allowing our nations to be invaded by illegal aliens. The October Caravan is also an attempt by George Soros, who has been found to be financing the caravan, to make Trump seem powerless in the eyes of his base. The exclusion of aliens is a fundamental act of sovereignty. The right to do so stems not alone from legislative power, but is inherent in the executive power to control the foreign affairs of our nation. Before getting started, let me say what needs to be done. 1. Trump needs to declare this invasion as an act of war. 2. Trump needs to make clear that no more illegal immigrants will be allowed in this country from this date moving forward. 3. George Soros and his organizations must be kicked out of our country, just as Orban recently did in Hungary. He should also be charged with both sedition and treason and brought to justice. 4. While we do have compassion for these people, it is past time that we begin to have compassion for our own legal children and citizens who are already suffering from this invasion. I have yet to hear Fox News even speak to this growing issue. We have globalists in both parties and throughout corporate media and big tech that think they can continue to bring in refugees and far too many legal immigrants. That must end, or there could well be blood in the streets in the coming years. No one wants to see that happen. Globalists in both the EU, Canada, and the US are using mass immigration to upend their economies and force these nations into a one-world globalist order. Today I'm addressing the need to immediately deport every single member of the illegal immigrant caravan that is now making its way to our southern border. This is an ongoing invasion, and now is the time to stop it dead in its tracks. We can no longer allow Trump to blow any more orange smoke up our butts. The invasion must be stopped right now, and not a single one of these invaders should be allowed in our country, something his base vehemently supports. We must finally put the interests of our legal citizens above the interests of these illegal alien invaders and the global corporations that are supporting this. A nation without borders will not long remain a nation. Today, 10/22/18, a few days after the Honduran Guatemalan immigrants busted into Mexico, Trump issued the following statement on Twitter. Sadly, it looks like Americans, police, and military are unable to stop the caravan heading to southern Mexico, the United States. Criminals and unknown Middle Easterners are mixed in. I have alerted Border Patrol and the military that this is a national emergency. Must change laws. Sorry, President Trump, wrong answer. You tried that with the last caravan and it didn't work. Instead, they were dispersed throughout our country. There is no time to change the laws. We are at war. We are being invaded. All of them, without exception, must be sent back. That's why we put you in office, Orange Smoke. The precedent must be set. We will no longer tolerate the invasion of our republic. Then a few minutes later, he issued this statement on Twitter. Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador were not able to do the job of stopping people from leaving their country and coming illegally to the U.S. We will now begin cutting off or substantially reducing the massive foreign aid they routinely get. Another quote, every time you see a caravan or people illegally coming or attempting to come into our country illegally, think of the blame of the Democrats for not giving us the votes to change our pathetic immigration laws. Remember the midterms, so unfair to those that come in illegally. Are you getting tired of Trump blowing orange smoke up your butts? Because I sure am. First of all, illegal immigrants are already costing us well over $100 billion every year. He's only giving these Central American countries $500 million each a year anyway. That is chump change compared to what they will cost U.S. citizens once they disappear after they are released. Secondly, we have too many underemployed Americans. We don't need any more legal immigration either, Chief Orange Smoke. Got that? Merely depriving 3 countries of $500 million won't even put a down payment on what they will cost our citizens if they are allowed to remain. It was but a few months ago that Trump put National Guard troops on the border for the last caravan. But because current law only allows them to be detained a mere 20 days, most of them have disappeared into our cities across the U.S., and but a few percent will ever appear at the respective immigration trial dates. This is both an act of war and an existential crisis for the U.S. that is already subsidizing illegal aliens to the tune of $100 to $240 billion a year. That has got to stop right now. It is time to call this what it is, an act of war, to treat this caravan and future illegal entries as an act of war. The only way to stop this is to deport every single one of them. No trials, no exceptions, and the countries that are responsible for this must be required to pay all costs getting them out of our country and back to where they once came from. Were elected primarily, Trump, to stop the illegal immigration, and so far all you're doing is blowing orange smoke up our butts. As Daniel Horowitz wrote on October 17, 2018, the president does have the authority to stop this. Quote, while Congress controls immigration, once immigrants are legally admitted to our country and can also exclude anyone from admission, the president shares concurrent jurisdiction on exclusions. He can't deport anyone he wants to without an authorizing statute, but he can exclude anyone up front. As the Supreme Court said in a landmark 1950 case, quote, the exclusion of aliens is a fundamental act of sovereignty. The right to do so stems not from legislative power, but is inherent in the executive power to control the foreign affairs of the nation. This is why for the first 100 years of our country, immigration was entirely controlled by diplomatic correspondence through the State Department. The president was clearly using this authority when he communicated with the leaders of the country of origin of this caravan. Horowitz also wrote during the first caravan on June 25th. And here's what he wrote then. Get a drink. When you have a flooding basement, the first thing any sane person would do is immediately work to stop the flow of new water before figuring out a strategy to deal with the water that already got in. That's exactly how we should handle our flooded border. The president has a trump card rooted in Article 2 of the Constitution to control foreign affairs and reiterated as delegated congressional authority in 8 U.S.C. paragraph 1182F, to shut down all immigration. It's time for him to pull the trigger and shut down all forms of border migration once and for all. Presidents have very broad power in times of war, and this is both a war and an invasion. It is your duty, Trump, to stop this now by sending every single one of them back. No exceptions, no excuses. For instance, Lincoln suspended habeas corpus through the Seditions Act during the Civil War. What I'm asking you to do pales in comparison to that egregious violation of the U.S. Constitution. But sometimes hard measures are required, Chief Orange Smoke. When I was running for U.S. Congress in 1996, I was the first candidate in this country to call for a 20-year moratorium on both legal and illegal immigration, well before Brat and Trump. In 1997, the E-Verify system was put into place, which could be used to deport every illegal immigrant and visa overstay. Yet it is now 21 years later, and our Congress is yet to implement universal E-Verify. Pathetic. Before continuing, I want to make it crystal clear that I have no hatred towards any human or immigrant. But what never seems to be discussed is the collateral damage that legal and illegal immigration have imposed on the American people. Illegal immigration is costing the American people over $100 billion a year and is putting downward pressure on both wages and benefits. One way we could really help our southern neighbors is to eliminate genetically modified agriculture in their countries. GMO farming in Central America began around 2009 and has since reduced agricultural jobs by as much as 50%. And these are largely agricultural economies. GMO farming is harmful to the arable soil. It has harmful effects on both the farmers and the consumers, and has had a significant impact on jobs. Eliminating GMO farming in these Central American countries may hurt global corporations, but it'll be good for the workers. They will have jobs again. It is clear that most global banks and corporations are playing a part in pushing more immigrants into the United States. But George Soros is the most significant individual behind this, and Glenn Beck recently traced his role in this current caravan invasion. I'm putting the links in the comments. At first, I was confused that Soros would push this caravan up the border just 3 weeks before an election, as it would seem to energize Trump's base. But upon further thought, it made perfect sense, because if Trump is forced to release 7,000 border crashes, then Trump's base will see him as weak and might even dishearten some of his base from voting at all. And unless he treats this as an act of war, then this will just be a repeat of the last caravan. The National Guard will detain them, but be forced to release them within 20 days because of the 1997 Flores Agreement. And there is no way that Congress has either the time or will to rescind the Flores Amendment via legislation. If you have been watching the video coverage of the caravan, it is obvious that 95% of them are fighting-age men and only 5% are women and children. Just the other day, Guatemala's president announced in the country's largest newspaper that nearly 100 ISIS terrorists had been apprehended in the impoverished Central American nation. There was absolutely no reason to assume that they are not hundreds, if not thousands, of additional ISIS and MS-13 fighters moving toward the U.S. in the goddamn caravan. I've also included a link to the essay, "Why Do We Need More People in This Country Anyway?" by Michael Anton. It is a compelling argument and well worth a read. I've also included a video link where Tucker Carlson interviews Anton over the essay. Consider this required reading for every American citizen. After you've read the essay and watched the interview, I'm quite confident that you will agree with what I've been saying for at least 22 years. We don't need any more legal or illegal immigration. I think that's it for today. As an old perennial hippie, let me just end this with the lyrics from the Beatles, the quintessential hippies. We wish you the best, but it's time that you get back to where you once belonged. It is time. Thank you very much. I'm also including a link to my writings. I've written over 250 essays that you could learn from. And since I've been censored by Facebook, you might as well go read them. I can't write anything more at this time because Zuckerberg is censoring me, just like Bezos and others are censoring us. This has got to end. They are trashing our First Amendment in this country, and I have no idea what is coming down the line. But I can tell you, it ain't going to be good if we allow it to happen. So that's it for today. Thanks a lot for listening.